Hello, my wonderful kids. Welcome to another exciting class. I hope you're doing great. Today, we're going to look at the topic, the call of Abraham. Kids, do you know the story of Abraham? Let's look at the story together. Now, I want you to watch this video in the next slide to learn more about the story of Abraham. Have fun.
Many years after the Tower of Babel, there was a man named Abram who put all his faith and trust in God. He was a descendant of Shem, one of Noah's sons. Abram was chosen by God for a very important purpose, and he would always be remembered for his great faith. God commands all of us to use the special gifts and abilities He has given us to help others know and follow Jesus. God promises favor on earth and rewards in heaven to all those who obey Him. God said to Abram,
"Leave your country, your relatives, and your father's house, and go to the land that I will show you. Because you choose to obey me, I will make you a great nation. I will bless you, and you will be famous. You will be a blessing and have favor on earth. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse anyone who treats you badly. Through you, all the families of the earth will be blessed."
All these promises were a covenant or agreement between God and Abram. So Abram left his home as God told him. Abram took Sarai his wife, his nephew Lot, and all their belongings, and they traveled to the land of Canaan. Abram was already 75 years old when they started the journey to Canaan. Once they arrived, God appeared to Abram and told him,
"I will give this land to your children."
Abram decided to build an altar to God there and was amazed that God promised this land to his children, even though Abram and Sarai were very old and didn't have any children. Abram then continued to travel with Sarai and Lot. While Abram tried to follow all God's commands, he disobeyed by choosing to take his nephew Lot with him. God told Abram to leave his relatives behind because he knew the problems it would eventually create. As time went on, Abram and Lot's animals and possessions became very large, and there was not enough land and water for both families. So Abram said to Lot, "Let's not fight between us. We are family. Isn't there plenty of land all around us? Let's separate our family so there is enough land and water for each of us." Abram allowed Lot to decide which part of the land he wanted. Lot chose a beautiful land called the Jordan Valley, and Abram and his family settled in the land of Canaan. After Lot moved away, God said to Abram,
"Now look all around you in every direction. All the land that you can see is for you and your children forever. I will make your descendants so numerous that they will be like the dust covering the earth."
God chose Abram for a special purpose, a very important part of his plan. God knew that Abram loved him with all his heart, and that he would teach and train his children to love and obey him too. God chose Abram to be the father of his chosen people, the Israelites. Today, we call this race of people the Jews. God also promised that the Messiah, the Savior of all the people in the world, would come from Abram's descendants. This Messiah was Jesus, and through him, every single promise from God would be fulfilled.
God promises a son to Abraham.
"Do not be afraid, Abraham. I am your shield, your very great reward." Genesis 15, verse 1. Abraham stood on the hill overlooking the valley. In the distance, he could see the lights of the city. The night was quiet and a cool breeze blew across the hilltop. Abram looked up at the stars above him. They were spread out like bright jewels on a dark velvet cloth, shining brightly. In the distance, he could hear his sheep bleat as they shuffled around, looking for a place to sleep. Abram looked up at the moon and tried to see if he could recognize any constellations. He even saw a shooting star.
Abraham! Abraham!
Abram knew it was God speaking to him.
Yes, Lord. Here I am, Abram answered. Look up at the heavens and count the stars. Tell me how many there are, said God.
Abram shook his head and replied,
Lord, you know that I'm old and that I cannot see that far. Besides, there are too many stars to count. You shall be the father of nations, Abram. You will have as many children as there are stars. How is this possible, Lord? Asked Abram. I'm an old man, and I don't have any children. Isn't it too late for me to have a son? I'm nearly 100 years old. Abram, said God, I have many great plans for you and your family and their families to come. I promise to watch over you and all your descendants, said God.
Abram closed his eyes and imagined what it would be like to hold his own son for the first time. 10 toes and 10 fingers and the brightest brown eyes. He would call his son Isaac. Abram was not sure how everything would work out, but he knew that God would keep his promise. Abram trusted in God.
God explained that he would change Abram's name to Abraham, which means father of nations. God promised that Abraham's family would become kings and that they would be his special, chosen people. God's promise, which is also called a covenant, was the beginning of an adventure for Abraham and his family.
This promise, or covenant, was part of a long friendship God keeps with his special chosen people. God promised to protect them and lead them and show them the way through every adventure.
What you discover in this story. When Isaac was born as the first of many sons, Abraham was 100 years old and his wife Sarah was 90.
Memorize Genesis 15 verse 18. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham.
Wow, I hope you enjoyed the video and you have learned the story about Abraham. Thanks for watching. Bye.